Our guest today is the president of the Fraternal Order of Police. He was born and raised in Chicago and graduated from St. Ignatius College Prep. Our guest today earned his Bachelor of Arts degree from DePaul University and his master's degree in business administration from Xavier University. He is a third-generation Chicago police officer. Our guest today served as a patrolman in the 11th, the 18th, and the 19th districts. He and his wife, Cara, live in Edgebrook with their beautiful children, Michael and Maeve. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago, Mike Shields. Mike.
Thank you to the City Club for having me. The City Club is an incredible organization with 108 years of history. It really is a great honor and a thrill for me to be here. I hope you enjoy my remarks today, and if perhaps we do not see eye to eye on some issues, I ask that you please refrain from driving over the speed limit while in the city of Chicago. I'd also like to thank Tom Lankto from William Blair for facilitating this. Tom asked me to give a presentation, however, he led me to believe that this was a roast on Mayor Rahm Emanuel. So I have my notes here, so let me begin by saying that this is the first time in over 80 years that the unions have seen a mayor in the city of Chicago that is a Republican banker. Now, I've been told that opening a speech with a quote is always a good way to get off on the right foot. There are numerous quotes by FDR, Churchill, Mark Twain, Aristotle, Shakespeare, and even Confucius. Those are too easy. Anyone can pull some fashionable quote from one of those linguistic titans right off the internet and instantly impress people with literary and historical acumen. Not me. I would like to kick things off with a quote from Kurt Cobain. For the charter members of the City Club, Kurt Cobain is a deceased rock and roll star from the 1990s. He said, "The duty of youth is to challenge corruption." The duty of youth is to challenge corruption. The message in this simple little quote, more than anything, got me where I am today. My first foray into politics was back in 2008. I ran for a trustee position on the Chicago Police Pension Fund. I did it because it appeared to me that the sitting pension board had been duped into making an investment with DV Urban Realty, Mayor Daley's nephew's real estate investment firm. Of course, the relationship with the mayor was not revealed to the trustees. Had it been, I am certain the investment would never have happened. I was appalled when I started researching the amount of money directly donated to Mayor Daley and the city treasurer from those money managers who were handling my pension funds. These records are not secret. Any person who does a little investigating can see what has been going on for years. Learning about these things made me want to run for the patrolman spot on the pension board because I wanted to stand up and be counted on those issues. My election. My own union, the FOP, did not endorse me, but I got a big break. It's Ron Huberman. During my campaign, Ron Huberman had come down to the Chicago Police Pension Fund, and he tried to credit his time as president of the CTA into service within the Chicago Police Pension Fund. So I ended up bringing Fox News down there and revealed this to the public, let the public know, let police officers know what was being done at the pension fund. And he withdrew his request. If you allow me to tell you a little bit about the pension board where I serve as a trustee. I see a few of my fellow trustees here today. The president of our fund is Ken Hauser. The newly elected trustee is Sergeant Brian Wright. The retirement board of the Policeman's Annuity and Benefit Fund of Chicago is charged with the task of overseeing the retirement money of sworn Chicago police officers. We as a board choose investment managers to secure the future of our fund. An officer's disability is also voted on by the board. The board of directors includes 4 appointed trustees of the city of Chicago. The participants of the plan elect 4 board members. This is done by rank. There is 1 board member that represents lieutenants, 1 that represents sergeants, 1 for detectives and patrolmen, that's me, and 1 board member to represent the annuitants. Chicago police officers contribute 9% of their salary into this fund. We have never missed a payment. The city of Chicago matches this on a 2-to-1 employer-to-employee multiplier. Over the years, the fund's actuaries have advised the city of Chicago that the 2-to-1 multiplier is insufficient to the actual cost of sustaining the plan. These pleas have fallen on deaf ears. It was not one bad market that has caused our pension plan to become one of the poorest plans in the state of Illinois. Since 1991, the amount of money coming out of the fund exceeded the amount coming in. Our plan takes in, on average, $90 million from the officers, $180 million from the city of Chicago. We pay out $520 million. The additional cost of $250 million comes from stripping down holdings from our investment. Once I arrived at the pension board in an elected capacity, I fought the status quo. I moved to terminate Ariel Capital Management. I wanted the money out of their hands. They were a politically connected firm in the city of Chicago that donated $100,000 to Mayor Daley and several $1,000s to our city treasurer. The pension board had given them $50 million in 2005 or 6, and at the time I came on the pension fund, that money was down to $21 million. I tried to have them removed, but that failed. I also wrote about the city treasurer's campaign contributions in many articles in the FOP newsletters. She then hired an attorney to sue me for defamation. But I'm a Chicago police officer. I don't back down. I don't worry when an attorney comes after me. I stand up for what is right. During my first several months, Inspector General David Hoffman subpoenaed each of the city pension funds in regards to DV Urban Realty. Out of all the city pension funds, I was the only trustee in the city of Chicago to vote to allow for this subpoena. I believe that any entity investigating a pension fund should be given whatever information it subpoenaed. I lost that motion by 7-1. I also forced Superintendent Weiss out of the pension fund as a participant. He came here with a $310,000 salary, and he was not ever in the civil service rank, and therefore that disqualified him from being a participant in our fund. My moves may be unpopular to many, but I know that in my heart this is the right thing to do for Chicago police officers. And fighting these issues helped me get elected FOP president in 2011. The Chicago FOP has over 16,000 members, nearly 11,000 actively serving as police officers, detectives, and evidence technicians in the Chicago Police Department. As president of the union, that is the sole bargaining agent for Chicago police officers, I want you to know all about the pension I expect to receive when I retire. My pension will be exactly the same as any other police officer that I enter the training academy with. Not a dollar more, not a dollar less. I am proud of the FOP because my personal pension situation as president of the union is really nothing new. All of the past presidents of the FOP are now retired, and they receive the exact same pension as their coworkers with the same rank and seniority. Not one of us has ever received an enhanced pension or any type of additional retirement compensation or benefit for our service to the police union. Nothing additional from the city, nothing additional from the union. Just last week, we read in the newspaper about lobbyists who had never done any teaching, but signed up for 1 day of substitute teaching and finagled themselves a teacher's pension. To us, that is revolting. Prior to that, we were treated in numerous stories about former union officials and pension fund employees taking advantage of multiple pensions, and quite frankly, benefits that they were not entitled to. If you came to this luncheon expecting me to defend this group of people, you came to the wrong place. Public employee pensions are under attack, and I am doing my best to defend them. But it's tough when all the stories are about bigwigs and the clouded doing what they can to milk every dollar out of the system for themselves. I wish the pension debate would focus on the hardworking police officers who had a calling for public service. I can tell you personally that those young men and women, like me, were enticed by the promise of a modest pension in return for bad working conditions, bad working hours, violence, injuries, and the very real possibility of being killed or maimed at work. Our pension does not allow for spiking. There is no factoring in your overtime. There is no scheming. Policemen get a simple pension for the unique work that they do. Most important, we do not get Social Security. This is our sole retirement source. As president of the FOP, another important duty that I have is to tell the story of what policemen do on a daily basis. The media needs to hear our side so that Chicagoans can grasp the full picture, not just the city of Chicago's version. Some of you in this crowd may have noticed that since I have been elected, the FOP has made it a point to comment in the news. During my campaign for president, I reached out to former spokesman of the Chicago Police Department, Pat Camden. And I know Pat is in the crowd right now. Pat, if you could stand up. If my mother were here today, she would tell me that if I was as good looking as Pat Camden, I wouldn't need a spokesman. But Pat's reputation on the street amongst the Chicago media is gold. Pat has a true gift of articulating what Chicago police officers do on a daily basis. He makes the average viewer understand the true dangers that Chicago police officers are exposed to every night. And during my campaign for presidency, I knew I had to have him. When I called Pat, he told me, he said, "Mike, I just want to get back in the game doing what's right for policemen." Since my arrival at the FOP in April of 2011, there have been a number of new and ongoing issues that include new anti-pension legislation, district closings, the upcoming G8 summit, police department manpower, an ACLU lawsuit about deployments of Chicago police, and the election of a new mayor, the appointment of a new superintendent. I would like to offer a few thoughts for your consideration on each of these issues. First, the G8 summit. Why on earth are we doing this? Evian, France, Germany, London, England, Toronto, Canada, all have hosted G8 summits. All have seen riots. Chicago is an easily accessible international travel hub. Very easy to get to. That alone makes G8 a bad idea. If we struggle to stop 14-year-olds from shooting each other, how prepared are we for professional rioters and agitators in this town? The department manpower, to me, it is like Enron accounting, the 1,000-person reshuffle. When you take into account that there have been 49 hires this year, 109 hires last year, and this year we will lose 550 officers to retirement, and last year 500 officers. We are a shrinking department, and the city of Chicago was in denial about this. City Hall recently dropped this numbers game after the FOP pushed back in the news media. The fact is that the mayor promised new hires. He specifically promised 250 officers would be hired from TIF funds. It has not been done. As a matter of fact, it has not even been discussed. I promised I would talk about the new mayor. All I can tell you is that I have not spoken with him since May, other than to say hello in passing. I wish we had an open line of communication, but we don't. It seems that City Hall only communicates through the media. If I want to find out what is going on at City Hall, I call Deputy Mayor Fran Spielman of the Sun-Times. I feel that there is more time spent preparing for the press conference than there is spent on actual policing strategy. 1,000 police officers on the street. The backbone of the department is the beat officer. Merging police with fire stations for the first time in the country. These are all media relations ploys to sell to the public, and they're catchy tunes. They bear no substance and even less truth. But the public and the media are wising up. I talked to other union leaders in this town, and I talked to leaders of other big city departments, and there's very little communication going on with this new administration. As for the mayor's pick to lead the department, I can't say anything good about him, or he will be terminated immediately. I won't say anything bad either, because he has 2 samurai swords displayed on his credenza in his office. Actually, I can tell you that Superintendent McCarthy and his staff has been accessible thus far. I know that in the past 6 months I have had more FaceTime with him than the FOP's last president ever had with Jody Weiss. I do hope that the open door policy continues. I also see that Superintendent McCarthy will be speaking at the City Club next week. next month, and it's sold out. I need a ticket. Because the FOP has a couple questions. And this leads me to my next subject. District and area closings. What for? We have asked, and no one can or will answer. It seems that City Hall wants to change for change's sake. I am personally not in favor. In the Chicago Police Department, there's 5 areas for the detectives. They will be closing 2. However, they won't be closing their doors. They're still going to be open. And the city is not answering where the actual cost savings will be, nor will they. These closings are a good idea for a press conference, but not for the practical application of the Chicago Police Department. We've seen plenty of new pension legislation. I have spent about every day of the fall veto session in Springfield fighting off pension attacks. First, Tom Cross, a Republican from the suburbs, puts in a bill that would give the city a 4-3 majority on all pension boards for the city of Chicago and Cook County employees. It failed. The FOP urged thousands of members to call Minority Leader Cross's office. We sent 4 buses filled with Chicago police officers, armed with signs stating, "Don't cross us," with the FOP logo. Cross dropped the bill, and to his credit, he did request an autographed sign with his name on it. He may have missed his opportunity to be the FOP Man of the Year, but there's always next year. I also want to talk about the ACLU's new lawsuit against the city of Chicago and what the FOP plans to do about it. Who are the players in this lawsuit? The ACLU and the Central Austin Neighborhood Association. Never heard of them. I've never heard of the Central Austin neighborhood. They're the plaintiffs. The city is the lone defendant. What do the plaintiffs want? They have asked for a declaratory judgment stating that the current deployment of the Chicago Police Department is illegal. They also want an injunction against the city. What forum was this suit brought in? Surprisingly, state court, and in a non-jury division. I know there are a lot of lawyers in this room. Maybe some of you can help me here. Since when does the ACLU file actions in state court? Let's talk about the lawyers in this case. Who are they? The ACLU has its own lawyer, of course, but its co-counsel on this case is the law firm of Sidley and Austin. In a normal world, this would seem like a large law firm providing some pro bono work to the ACLU and a community group that could never dream of being able to hire such a powerful and prestigious law firm. But I'm a policeman. I'm trained to look a little deeper, trained to investigate. Here's what I've uncovered. The law firm of Sidley and Austin represented the city of Chicago this past summer in a review of credit card use by city bosses. We may recall reading about it or seeing the story on TV. During the summer, the partner at Sidley, who spearheaded the effort, was appointed to the Chicago Police Board. So what, you say? So the stated mission of the police board, according to municipal code, is to adopt rules and regulations for the governance of the police department of the city. What this all means is that a law firm that did work for the city is now representing an organization that is suing its client, the city. A partner at that law firm who is directly involved in the firm's work for the city now sits on the city's police board that is responsible for governance of the police department. His law firm is now suing the city over the governance of the department. If this all seems like a tangled mess, the FOP agrees. Remapping police beats and districts is something for aldermen, quite like Joe Moore, to do. The department heads, the unions, and the community, they're to be part of this too. It is not something that should be decided by the way of the ACLU and a single Cook County judge. That is why I've instructed my lawyers to petition the court to intervene in this lawsuit. We will file a petition to do just that, and we will file it this week. I am very uncomfortable standing on the sidelines while a powerhouse law firm that just represented the city and has a partner on the police board turns around and sues its client. I'm not a lawyer, but I think I know what a conflict is. Finally, I'd like to close by saying to the business community here that we are the Chicago Police. When you close your shop for the night, you know that we keep your property safe. To the parents in this room, when your children walk through your neighborhood, you know that we keep them in good hands. To the taxpayer in this room, you know that we are not gaming the system to get rich. We took the job to serve the community and to serve you. Chicago police officers are your neighbors, friends, nieces, nephews, brothers and sisters. We are the people that coach Little League and sit next to you at church. We want to be part of the solution in this city. I started the speech with a quote from a dead rock star. I'll end it with a quote from another dead rock star, a political rock star, Bobby Kennedy. He said, "Every society gets the kind of criminal it deserves. What is equally true is that every community gets the kind of law enforcement it insists on." Ladies and gentlemen, let's work together and insist upon the best law enforcement in the country right here in Chicago, Illinois. Thank you very much.
And my side, this is my side. Any questions? Ms. Ginny is walking around. There's no conflict of interest here, I'm sure. But before we go, Mike has his dad here who actually predated me at the police academy. Mr. Shields, why don't you stand up so we all can see you. Unfortunately, there aren't that many who predate me at the... Okay, here we go. First question. My goodness, it's an essay. Okay, and it's anonymous. Feel like I'm back at the academy. Here we go. From a furious taxpayer. I don't know, I just got it, so take it easy.
I think it's Jim Franzik, the city labor attorney.
No, I can read the writing. Here we go. As anyone who has followed the various, maybe not, exposés in the Sun-Times and Tribune knows, our pension fund, this could be a police officer, has been a veritable kleptocracy. Ooh. Moving on, from incompetent managers to do-nothing, know-nothings, trustees, to the gaining of benefits by connected insiders, what has happened is unethical, if not criminal. A, do you concur? We'll take these one at a time. All three of them. A, do you concur? B, is there any evidence that that the new administration is engaging in these issues at the root? Not sure what that means. C, though, what is the status of any interest in the PABF may have with firms controlled by Cellini, Rosenberg,
Davis Vinaco.
Davis Vaneco. I'm sure all of you know what this means. Unfortunately, the moderator doesn't have a clue. Mr. Shields, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that I did campaign on was the contributions made from certain investment managers versus how certain managers were to get money. And that's something that I've always fought and will continue to do so. And the SEC has actually taken their own action by changing the way that contributions can be made to individuals on pension funds. And I believe the cap is $250, which is a giant step. But that took an action of the SEC, not an action of the Illinois legislature. But one of the questions is, what is the status of investments with the Policeman's Annuity Benefit Fund that are controlled by Cellini and Rosenberg? We don't have any Cellini in our fund. Davis and Vaneco, I've always joked that it's the gift that keeps on giving, that it just won't go away. And we are in the midst of changing hands right now of it's run by Allison Davis, and it will not be run by Allison Davis in the near future, if not this week. So look forward to that.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for Jim Francic's question.
We don't have time for that, Mr. Francic. I'm sure it's forming it, but I think it would be a more private. Any other questions before the moderator asks one to close and then run for his life? Okay. Mike, the police pension fund is not much different than the other three pension funds. They're all underfunded in the city. And as the state treasurer could probably vouch for, we're not exactly in Fat City with the pensions in the state. My question is, and if you heard me on the radio, you know I always say this, you can't blame the city or the state. Excuse me, take two. You can't just say it's the city and the state's problem. It's the city and the state taxpayers' problem. Question, where is the money going to come from?
Senate Bill 3538 from last January that was passed, it addresses the funding of the pension fund beginning in 2015. So come 2015, there's going to be what's called actuarial funding, which is different from the current version of the multiplier. We have the 2-to-1 multiplier, which I explained, but the actuarial funding is going to be funding that's based on what the actuaries will tell the city of Chicago that is due. And there's nothing written in Illinois pension code that says that the monies that going to pension funds have to come from from the property taxpayer. And I think the best solution, which I'm sure we will have many discussions with Mr. Francic on, is that the answer rests in getting an alternate source of revenue to go into the pension funds as opposed to the property taxpayer.
That's a very good answer, and I'm sure Mr. Francic has that alternative at the tip of his fingers. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause?